All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's a small group today, which is great. We'll have plenty of time for questions. My name is Michelle May Curry, and I am the curator on staff at the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. And this is our first of 3 workshops, virtual workshops, to support applicants for our art exhibition grant line. We'll be meeting for about an hour today. And we'll go over the request for applications in full through a slide deck, and we'll talk about the eligibility of applicants and artworks, the date ranges for exhibitions, budget needs, exhibition guidance. We'll talk about how the applications will be scored and based on a set evaluation criteria. We'll talk about the many documents you will submit as a part of this process, some tips for assembling and preparing all of these documents. And then we will navigate the grant portal through some screen grabs, and I'll teach you which buttons to click in order to get your application uploaded to our grant portal. This meeting is being recorded, and you will be sent this recording via email along with some follow-up documents. So please don't feel a need to furiously take notes while I'm talking. And I'm going to pause for questions throughout this workshop. So, and there will be moments, but please also raise your hand if you'd like to use that function to call my attention to a specific slide, or if you want to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll answer them as we go along. I have Ron Humbertson in the meeting with us today. Ron's going to be off camera, but he's going to be supporting in helping answer questions. Ron is our collections registrar who manages our art bank loan program, as well as the many different ways that our gallery intersects with our public art grant lines. Oh, it looks like I have a couple people in the waiting room. One moment. Let these folks join and I'll say a quick hello. Hi, Allison. Hi, Moira. We're just getting started. We're about to hop into this slide deck. Okay. So our arts exhibition grant line is a grant line that provides support for the development and public presentation of visual art exhibitions by district residents, resident curators. We offer the use of the CAH building's exhibition space, which is located at 200 I Street Southeast, which is our building lobby, and as well as our CAH virtual gallery space. So both exhibition spaces can be curated alongside this grant line. The virtual gallery is also built to the specs of our brick and mortar space, so it's great as a tool to use on the front end of curating and rendering, as well as on the back end and presenting it to the public as an accessibility feature for folks who can't get into the gallery. Applicants must be either individuals who are based in the district, or, and this is new as of this year, we're really excited about it, or applicants must be nonprofit organizations with prior curatorial experience, with someone on staff with curatorial experience. Previously, this grant line was just open to individuals, and by opening up to nonprofit organizations, we're acknowledging sort of the rich tapestry of arts organizations that have the capacity to create beautiful exhibitions in our gallery space. This year, we will be funding 3 arts exhibition grants. And this year those grant lines are going to be thematic in their execution. So we will have 3 opportunities in the winter, spring, and summer. And each season will have its own thematic category that applicants can apply to curate an exhibition around. So for winter 2025, Our thematic category is social justice arts, and our spring category is veterans artwork. And then our third category in the summer of 2025 is queer identity in association with World Pride being hosted in Washington, D.C. in June. We'll go through the specific dates tied to each of those thematic categories, but those are the three sort of pockets that we are working with in this next funding cycle. We highly encourage applicants to partner with a co-curator or mentee, and we'll talk a little bit about how that impacts the amount of funding available. If you are applying as an individual, the amount that you can apply for is $30,000, or you will receive a grant of $30,000 for execution of this exhibition. Or if you partner with a co-curator or a curatorial mentee, you will receive an extra $5,000, so a total of $35,000. The goals of this program, beyond just offering up our gallery space to curators, is to provide space for curators to develop educational art exhibitions for presentation in a government facility and virtual space. Something that I'm really happy that our gallery does well is it is a civic art space. We're not a museum. We're not a fine arts for-profit gallery. Our mission is different. We are playing with government tax dollars, which requires us or encourages us to have conversations about community identity, civic engagement, and we hope that curators who are coming in to utilize our space understand and are excited by the opportunity to engage the community through their exhibitions. So a little bit about eligibility. There's some criteria for individuals as well as criteria for nonprofit organizations, and we'll go through both. In order to be eligible as an individual, you have to be an artist, curator, or arts-related professional over the age of 18 with prior curatorial experience. You have to be a legal resident of the District of Columbia for at least 1 year prior to the application deadline. Your residency in the District of Columbia has to be permanent for the grant period. So the grant period begins October 1, 2024 and ends in September 30th, 2025. And then you have to be in good standing with CAH, which means that if you are a previous grantee of CAH, you have completed all necessary reporting that you have to do related to those grant lines. There are no, all of your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted for any previous CAH funded works. So for nonprofit organizations that are interested in applying, there is a set of eligibility requirements as well. You have to be a nonprofit 501c3 dated at least 1 year prior to the application deadline. You have to be an arts organization or gallery representing artists living in the metropolitan area. Your principal business address must be located in DC, and you're eligible to do business in DC, as well as a majority of your work or activities occurs within DC. There's a few things that you cannot be, like a college or university, a service organization, foreign government, or other DC government or federal government agency, including DC public schools. And then again, you have to be in good standing with CAH, so no delinquent reports or outstanding materials. So that's eligibility. And here are the exhibition dates that are relevant for each thematic category. So our winter 2025 exhibition that is tied to social justice arts, it will open MLK Day weekend. It is a part of our effort to activate our gallery in collaboration or in conjunction with MLK Day and with Black History Month. Our our ask is that we don't require the exhibition to be explicitly tied to Black History or Black History Month, but we acknowledge that Black History Month is a great opportunity to have conversations about social justice and identity and contemporary issues. That will be up from January 10th through March 7th. You'll see that it's roughly 2 months run for each, or 6 week to 2 month run for each exhibition, with the install and deinstall dates in early January and early March. The Art of Veterans exhibition will run from April 4th through May 23rd, 2025. And then the World Pride Queer Identity exhibition will run from June 13th through August 1st, 2025. Install and deinstall dates you'll see run the week before the opening as well as the week after the opening. I'm going to pause here for some questions. Any questions from the audience so far as we're running through this? Anything about eligibility or exhibition dates, thematic categories?
Michelle, it's Cassie. Was there leeway at all to include Memorial Day? Because, of the 2 holidays, federal holidays in the calendar year, it's Veterans Day and Memorial, really tie into veterans.
Right. So we were able to close on May 23rd, which is Memorial Day weekend. So the last day that you could have an event in the gallery is that Friday of Memorial Day weekend as a closing event. That weekend, though, is very difficult for us to staff the gallery since it is a major American holiday. Our security staff is not available, and the building itself would be closed.
Okay, all right. But the 23rd, we could have an event.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. Thank
Friday. You. Yes. Allison.
Just a question, if we're applying as an organization, as part of the budget, could we bring in an outside curator, or is the expectation that the organization staff is curating?
That's a good question. I actually don't know what we stipulated in the RFA itself. Ron, do you remember if we said
Yeah, I would have to comb through I believe as long as the organization identifies the curator that they want to bring in, I think that is fine. It doesn't have to be an employee of the organization.
I
Okay.
agree.
And if that's the case, does the curator have to live in DC? Like if the artists are all DC residents, does the curator themselves have to be a DC resident?
So just the grantee has to be a resident. So if the Nicholson Project is applying as the applicant, then Nicholson Project as a DC resident would receive the funds, but the curator would not have to be.
Okay, thank you.
Philip.
Hi, how you guys doing today?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. My question is really short. So I am a fashion designer. I have been designing since I was 16, and I'm just now getting like settled in with my business to want to take on like projects. And the one that really stood out to me was the queer identities. I identify as queer. I'm also from Washington, DC. And my question was, so I've curated a art show before with youth, but I don't have like I have photos to show and like work, but like that was only one experience that I've done. So I just wanted to know like would I still qualify or not?
The RFA stipulates that you just need to have past curatorial experience.
Okay.
It sounds like you do. You would just have to think about if your material is fashion. So would you be curating a fashion exhibition that is like mannequin based, or would it be artwork on a wall? You have to think about how you would utilize our gallery space. But you certainly qualify for application. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then I also have like a second question, just to piggyback on it. So, will you guys have like, I mean, I know this is a workshop to like know about it, but like, is there another workshop for like specifically applying for this grant?
Yes.
Or like somebody to assist me throughout the process? Because like I'm kind of like I have all the, you know, EIN and LLC, so like I'm ready to go, but there's some things that I just don't know because I'm just now like a small business owner that I'm not aware of when it comes to like grant stuff. But I know how to get like capital funding and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to run through, at least for this grant line in this workshop, how to assemble all of your material, or like what the materials you need to assemble are, how to submit them into the grant application portal. And then we also have a YouTube channel, DC Arts, that has some videos on like tips for assembling your application, and the specific documents, compliance documents. But then we also have this new program called the Grantee Assistance, Applicant Assistance Program, the GAP program, which has identified grantees who've previously gotten awards who are willing to serve as sort of like mentors or assistant people who to assist applicants in completing their application. So I can send you more information about that. And then I would be your point of contact for any questions that you have as you're going through the grant application process. And I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one at the point where you've sort of assembled your materials and you're ready to look through the application as a whole. And I can give you feedback on the application.
Okay, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much for clarifying that. Because I was feeling a little bit discouraged. I was like, I only have one experience doing this, but I know I'm still capable of doing it. So thank you.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to, if you're like interested in applying as a team of two as opposed to a team of one, having a co-curator or a mentee, and so that if you're feeling like you're still sort of getting your feet underneath you as a curator, that might be an opportunity to get you some more support.
I think I might explore that option because I don't know what I'm doing, guys. I just know how to create.
Great. Okay, any other questions that I can answer at this point? Okay. So moving on to budget, as a part of your application for this grant, you will assemble a budget, and there's a template provided on our website. I can't see the chat, but Ron, if you could drop a link to the landing page for Art Exhibition Grant, the Art Exhibition Grant, you'll see underneath the file section a number of files that you will need in order to complete your application, as well as a link to our grant resources for applicants, which will send you to a page that has all of the necessary compliance documents related to submitting grants, as well as a link to the grant application portal. And we'll go through all of that in a sec, but the budget template you can find on our Art Exhibition Grant landing page. And in that budget, there are a number of allowable costs that you can factor in. One of those is a curatorial fee that should not exceed 20% of the budget, as well as a co-curator or curatorial mentee fee, which can also not exceed more than 20% of the budget. You can pay for artist fees or artistic personnel. So if you would like to pay your participating artists in the exhibition for inclusion in the exhibition, that is something that you can pay for. Or consultants related to the exhibition, anyone that you bring in for, let's say, a panel event, you could pay them for their participation. You can pay for equipment, such as TVs. We have at this point assembled a list of available equipment that we can provide from CAH, and we'll point you toward that in the RFA. But if there are additional pieces of equipment that you would like to purchase, let's say a projector, TV, additional pedestals, anything for the gallery. Methods of exhibition presentation, so things like framing for artworks, wall text, vinyl wall text, labels can be paid for. Delivery and return of artwork, so any shipping and transportation costs that's associated with getting the artwork to and from the gallery space. And the design and maintenance of a website or photography of artworks for the virtual exhibition. This is just a short list of allowable costs. There's also a list of it continues forward, programmatic expenses, things like printing flyers for the exhibition, renting chairs. We have an amount of chairs available for programming, but if you need any additional tables or chairs beyond that. Insurance costs. One thing that we require at the time of the award is proof that you have purchased commercial general liability insurance that will protect the artwork and the gallery space in the event of an incident in the gallery. Space rental for storage of artwork in relation to the exhibition. So let's say you've brought in all of the artwork and you're a month out from the exhibition and you can't store it in your home, you can get a storage facility, and that you could cover that, the cost of that. Any travel directly related to the exhibition project implementation. So I'm actually not sure if this is listed anywhere in this this presentation, I'm realizing, but something that we want to encourage from applicants this year is that perhaps they've put on an exhibition in another state or city that they would like to bring to our gallery space so that district residents can benefit from seeing that work, or maybe they want to bring an existing exhibition and add to it in our gallery with, let's say, DC Resident Artist Works or other artist works. This is an effort for us to acknowledge that DC curators may not just be curating in DC, that they may be curating in other major cities, and that our city could benefit from having the opportunity to see those shows and to travel shows. So any traveling expenses related to directly bringing exhibition work into our gallery. And then yes, any other types of documentation of the exhibition can be supported. There's a number of unallowable costs, such as purchase of food and beverage for programming in the space. We cannot support food and beverage even for our own events, unfortunately, so that extends to you all. Any sub-granting or re-granting of funds from CAH, so you couldn't, let's say, put out a call for artists and issue a grant to artists for participation in your exhibition. You can, however, pay them directly for participation in the exhibition, if that makes sense. Any tuition, school tuition or scholarship fees, funds provided to universities, DC public schools, any of the non-allowable types of organizations. You cannot give money to those organizations. Individuals, let's say if you're working with a installer who is a student at GW, you can pay that student directly. You just cannot pay GW for installation of the work, if that makes sense. Okay. Any costs related to fundraisers or offsite special events related to this exhibition, and then travel or other expenses not directly related to the execution of the proposed exhibition. So that is budget, and I'm gonna go a little bit through exhibition guidance and layout, and then we'll pause for questions. As part of the RFA, the request for applications, which you can find on our landing page on our CAH website, there is a whole section that provides the gallery layout, the specifications of the gallery, including measurements and photos of the space itself. I would highly recommend visiting the gallery in person to get a sense of the gallery space, to imagine your proposed exhibition in the space itself, um, and just some gallery specs. It's approximately 180 linear feet within a public building lobby. Again, here's some screenshots of the gallery space, and there's also going to be a link later on to here it is, the virtual gallery space. And again, we'll send these slides to you, so you'll have a link to this, but you can also find a link to our virtual gallery space on the CAH website. But it's a beautiful space. It's very large. It's deceptively large. It's got these large windows that face out onto I Street. I think it's I Street. And it gets lots of light in the daytime, especially to these front few walls. And when you stand in the front of the gallery, you can see almost clear all the way to the back of the gallery. So it's a really great space for dynamic storytelling. Christopher, I see your hand up.
Yes, specifically about the gallery layout.
Sure.
Do you have the files for the programs that are being used, or some really high definition photos that we can download? It's hard to read the files that I have.
I think I can send you individual images, JPEG images of the gallery layout. We have those in our files.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
That would be
Yeah.
great. Thanks.
Mhm. Okay. So just a little bit of guidance about how you can imagine artwork and install and deinstall working in our gallery space. The artwork for your exhibition can be either 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional. So we have the capacity to support inclusion of sculpture and I believe even ceiling installation. We had one grantee include some ceiling installation in their previous art exhibition grant. And we have, again, the availability of some pedestals for inclusion. And if you look, I think it's called Addendum B in the RFA. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the PDF, you'll find a list of available equipment for use in the gallery. We have 2 TVs, 55-inch TVs for use, and as well as some vitrines for the pedestals themselves, acrylic vitrines. There's a checklist that's required with the application of your proposed artworks. And at the time of application, there are some materials related to the proposed exhibition that are more about giving us a sense of what you are proposing. And then a month out from the exhibition, there are some final documents, including the exhibition checklist, that will be required to submit for CH approval. New as of this year, we are allowing that curators, if they are artists themselves, can include up to 2 pieces of their own artwork in the exhibition. Previously, we did not allow the inclusion of curator artwork, but acknowledging the ways in which curators can be multi-talented and a part of the arts community that they are supporting with this exhibition, we would like to extend that opportunity to curators as well. Just a couple notes on install and deinstall. The curator is responsible for coordinating the exhibition installation by a professional art handler or installer and or artist. we ask that that person is, we hope that that person is licensed and prefer it. And then again, pedestals and TV monitors available upon request. We also require that as a part of this exhibition, you create some programming related to exhibition opening, as well as assembling some type of public program, either a artist talk or exhibition closing, related to the exhibition. The number of programs that you put on in the gallery is up to you. We ask that you, at the time of application, give us a sense of what you're imagining for those programs. There is one of the files that you'll find on the art exhibition grant landing page is a timeline for each thematic category. So you can download that timeline specific to the category that you're applying for and input the chosen dates and a couple sentences describing your idea for that event. Good morning, Lauren. We're about halfway through, but you're in luck that we are recording this panel, and happy to answer any questions you have as you're jumping in. Okay, yeah, time for questions. This is a pause, good pause moment. Any questions about gallery layout, about assembling, install, deinstall?
Yeah, mine might get answered soon, but you covered it in a previous slide gallery. I was very interested in the website design and layout. Am I going to get my own URL and post my own site, or is there any requirements to tie into one of your sites and use one of your programs?
I believe that it's entirely on you to create the website to your own specifications, but we would link to your website on ours. So we would create a landing page for your website, and we would have some, the opening and closing events, but then we would also link to yours.
Perfect, thank you.
I just wanted to add on to that, Michelle, we have available Art Spacer for the virtual galleries.
Yes.
That anybody who wins the grant has opportunities to create their exhibition in that space as well.
Yes. And Ron, if you could remind me, do we give grantees access to Art Placer at the application stage for the rendering process, or is that something that if they get the application or if they get the grant, then they are able to get in there and render?
Only if they receive the grant. We have a specific program that mimics our current exhibition space, so it's probably, less cost on the grantee to just use our program that already mimics our space.
Awesome.
Yeah, I had a question. I feel like previously Art Place, or like last year, it was required that we used Art Place, or is it not required this year?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've changed at the application stage is that we are no longer requiring a full rendering of the exhibition at the time of application. It's an optional thing that you can submit with your application, but we recognize that that is a very heavy lift at the application stage to fully render an exhibition.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean for the actual, once you receive the grant.
Oh.
So last year it was required that you had to use, it was Art Placer, right? To create the virtual gallery.
Is it required
not
this year to create the virtual gallery? I don't know if we took out it as a requirement, though we do really appreciate it as a accessibility feature for the public. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Thanks.
Mhm. Any other questions before we keep moving? Okay. So moving on to evaluation criteria. All of the applications for the art exhibition grant will be reviewed by a jury panel of experts in the field assembled by the public art department. The jury will evaluate each application using the same set of criteria. The first set of criteria is whether the exhibition proposal is a unique, compelling concept, as well as unique, compelling programming. So is the artwork selection clear and I'm going to take out that language of finalized. We want to allow applicants to feel like they can alter their plans as the curatorial process moves forward. But is the artwork selection that they've presented very clear? Is there a curatorial premise that demonstrates a creative and original theoretical idea or perception? Is the concept fully developed and presents challenging ideas that may be thought-provoking for discussion? As I said, I really value our space as a civic art space. And so the conversation that the exhibition is ready and willing to have is something that we really emphasize. Is the related programming that is proposed thoughtful and creative and innovative? The second criteria, which also accounts for 30% of the score, is the merit of the artistic content and the clarity of the layout. Are the selected works demonstrating artistic excellence and high aesthetic quality? So is the artwork selected, successful? Is the curatorial statement clear and explains the thematic premise of how the artworks relate to the theme or focus? And then this is a category, we've made the exhibition rendering optional in this year's grant process. But as the applicant is thinking about the unique architecture and implementation of our gallery space, are they thinking about how they are activating that space well through their exhibition proposal? The next category is opportunity and equity. So does the proposal show evidence of intentionality in planning and implementing to promote welcoming and inclusive environments for attendees of the exhibition? Does it offer emerging and underrepresented artists opportunity or exposure? Does it provide and ensure access for artists, contractors, audiences, participants in the DMV and the metropolitan region? Does it show thoughtful engagement with, if a co-curator or a curatorial mentee is a part of the curatorial team, does the proposal show a thoughtful inclusion of that partner in that work? And then just general intentionality of planning and implementation to engage a diverse audience. So are your programs accessible? Are they appealing and exciting to a range of audiences in the city? And then finally, for 10% of the evaluation criteria is the budget and feasibility of the exhibition. So does the proposed budget associated with the exhibition reasonable? Is it reasonable and achievable? And is the exhibition feasible itself within the allotted time of the exhibition? So that's evaluation criteria. I'm actually going to pause here to see if there's any questions about this criteria before I move forward. It's okay if there isn't. This next section is just a bit of a behemoth, so I wanted to create a moment of pause. We're now moving into discussion of all of the mandatory documents that should be submitted at the time of submission. I've broken up this section in the RFA In previous versions of this RFA, it's just been all of these documents have been required at the time of submission. One of the revisions this year is we've identified what's needed at the time of submission to actually review the proposal, and then what's required at the time of award to move the exhibition to implementation, and then what's needed at 30 days prior to the exhibition install to ensure that we are bringing in a rich and quality exhibition into our space, as well as what's needed at the time of at the ending of the exhibition. So these are the documents that you will need in order to submit your application for consideration. You'll need an exhibition proposal with a curatorial statement that relates to the proposed exhibition. This is a maximum of 500 words, and you should see this as your main opportunity to communicate what this exhibition is, how you're engaging the theme category, and how you are imagining including artists and artworks into the space, how you are imagining bringing on, if you are to bring on a co-curator or curatorial mentee into the process, and just narrate the story of what you are hoping to do in the gallery space. You will submit a outline that is a timeline of all programming events using the templates that we've provided on our landing page. There's one associated with each thematic category, and many of those dates and times are already quite set in place. Like, we know when install and deinstall are happening. We know when the range of dates that are available for the exhibition. So really, you're just identifying when your opening reception would be, when your programming would be, any type of closing reception. You will submit resumes and CVs for yourself as an applicant and your co-curator or mentee if you have one. You will submit a comprehensive detailed budget outlining all of your budget details using the provided budget template. You will provide artist statements for each of the proposed artists that you have identified at this stage of the application process, maximum of 250 words each. If this is new as of this year, if the curator seeks to work with a nonprofit organization to create artwork in groups or in anonymous settings, let's say you've identified that you would like to work with 5 different arts nonprofits that work with children or a certain identity population in the DMV that would be producing artwork as a part of this exhibition. Providing mission statements for those organizations in lieu of artist statements would be something that you could do. You should submit an image list for the proposed artworks that you've identified, and an image and the images themselves. So the image identification list will list things like name, title, year, dimensions, but you will also submit the actual JPEG files of the artworks. The file should not exceed 5 megabytes in size. This is just something for our backend in terms of loading images. And I'm noting here that these works can be subject to change based on the final curation and availability of works, given that the final image list will be submitted 1 month prior to the exhibition installation. If the applicant is working with youth populations under the age of 18, they should submit background checks proving that they are equipped and permitted to work with those populations. And then finally, an optional rendering of the proposed exhibition design and layout. In previous years, this has been a requirement of the proposal, and this year it's optional, though a lovely addition to an exhibition application. Moira, I see a hand raised.
Hey, good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
So can you clarify a little bit who exactly needs background checks? So if we're, for instance, proposing a workshop that will include youth. Is it everybody on the grant team, like the curator, the co-curator, who need the background checks, or?
So whoever would be running that workshop and interacting with the youth in that space would need a background check. So
Okay.
if you were the person who was interacting with youth,
Okay.
you would have to get the background check. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So those are the mandatory documents that are related to the exhibition proposal. There's also a number of documents that are mandatory for all applicants of CAH grant funds or of DC government funds. So this first one is something that's required of all DC government grant applicants, which is a certificate of clean hands. If this is something that you're not familiar with, you should check out that link. But what this certificate specifies is that you do not owe the DC government more than $100 in taxes or parking tickets or fines. The idea is that the DC government does not want to issue you a grant award if you owe the DC government money. This is a certificate that can often cause a barrier for entry for a lot of artists and curators, given the required funds allowed to be able to pay parking tickets or taxes on time. We recognize that this is a barrier to entry that does not allow us to fully serve our arts community. And so I want to encourage, if anyone on this call falls in the category of not being able to obtain a certificate of clean hands, that there are starting points for being able to get a clean hands. You can enter into a tax payment plan with the Office of Tax and Revenue. And I'm happy to point you in the direction of resources to figure out how to get a clean hands if this is your first time navigating this process. If you are a DC, you have to get one regardless of if you're a DC resident or not, but in considering that this application process is only open to DC residents and nonprofit organizations, it should only be, there's a singular process for that. So a certificate of clean hands is required, as well as a statement of certification, which is a document that is specific to CAH that just has a number of things that you agree to as an applicant of CAH grant funds. Then a signed IRS form W-9. There's also additional mandatory documents for nonprofit organizations, which are an IRS letter of determination, a tax certificate of incorporation, and a 990 from your most recently completed fiscal year. Any questions about mandatory documents that should be submitted at the time of application?
Hi, Michelle. This is Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Just hi. Quick question about the certificate of clean hands. Is that for all the participating artists as well as the curators, or just the curator?
Just the curator who is applying to receive grant funds.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and this is something I should bring up for the applicant. Something to consider with a grant this size is how it would affect your taxes for the following year. So if you were to receive a $30,000 or $35,000 grant award as an individual, you would be the point of contact for paying taxes on that grant fund. You would be issued a 1099. And so as you're issuing out funds to, let's say, artists for participation, you might consider how you might navigate the tax burden that would fall upon you as the applicant in the following year as you are building your application. Okay.
Thanks, Michelle.
So now we're moving towards mandatory documents at the time of award and then 30 days out from the exhibition itself. Once you have been awarded this grant line, we ask that you provide proof that you have obtained general liability insurance that will allow you to be protected to cover any potential injury or loss or damage of artwork during the installation or exhibition and de-installation periods. We're not allowed to tell you or offer recommendations on general liability insurance companies in the area, but I would encourage you, if this is something you're not familiar with, to reach out to some of the previous grantees who have won our exhibition grant awards to identify who they worked with, or ask around in your arts network to see who might be a good fit for this. Okay, and then finally, the documents that are mandatory 30 days prior to the installation. So this is essentially when you would present the final exhibition rendering and checklist and any related writing and materials for the exhibition itself. So as the project manager for this grant line, or the grants manager, I would be your point of contact for going through the subject to approval side of this process. We would go back and forth and review all of the materials that you've assembled. And I would just say, yes, looks good. You know, this is a good fit for our exhibition space. But, you know, once you are the curator, you are tasked with the writing and execution of this exhibition. So I would entrust you, you know, I would review it, but entrust you with the execution of that work. So you would submit a finalized exhibition virtual rendering, a object checklist, all associated artwork labels, all associated vinyl wall text, artist bios, any marketing and promotional materials that CAH can then distribute to our networks. We would extend our social media platform to you as a part of this exhibition, as well as our email listserv. So any flyers or promotional materials that you created as a part of this exhibition, we would circulate to our networks. We ask that you coordinate with CAH's communications team on rollout of those promotions. But again, in that addendum B of the RFA, you'll find some guidance on what we are able to support. Things like the printing of postcards is something that we're able to do if you provide us with the design of the postcard. You'll provide us with final programming and dates and times. You will provide us with written letters of consent from each exhibited artist that you are working with, indicating that they agree to be a part of this exhibition and are aware that they are a part of this exhibition. And then at this stage, you will submit any further background checks for programming participants. And then at the completion of the exhibition, there is a required budget form and final report. So you will at this time submit any receipts associated with the exhibition, as well as a report that details, that is just a series of questions that you respond to as a grantee of CAH that speaks to how it was for you going through this grant application process and exhibition. So those are all of the mandatory documents over the course of the grant year. Are there any questions about documents before I move on to preparing your application and taking a look at our grant portal? So we have a few tips just for ease of applying. One of them is pretty standard, identifying a folder in your in your computer where you can put all of your documents and give them a naming organizational scheme, such as like last name underscore clean hands, last name underscore W9. This is something that can help you as well as us as we're reviewing all of your documents. Keeping a copy of the evaluation criteria nearby as you're writing your curatorial statement. Having someone from outside of your discipline review your application as you are going through the process. As I said, the jury that will review your application is a jury of your peers that might come from a range of different disciplines. So imagining all of the different ways that your application might get read from different perspectives at this stage, we recommend. Not waiting until the last minute to submit your proposal, your application. We close the application portal July 1st at 9 p.m. for this grant line, and submitting well in advance of that July 1st deadline will ensure that you're not sweating on July 1st. And then if you run into any technical issues that are related to navigating the grant portal, there is technical support under the support tab. But if you're finding that navigating the application itself, any of the questions about the questions themselves, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay, so we're running up on 11 o'clock, and I want to quickly go through navigating our grant portal for applicants. I'm not sure if it's already been done, but I'm going to have Ron drop a link to our grant application portal in the chat. And this is where you're going to submit your application. If you're a new applicant, you'll hit that sign up today button and create a free account. And if you're a returning applicant, you'll hit sign in. It will take you to this landing page and you will be welcomed. You'll hit continue. And then you will be brought to a landing page that will show in the little sandwich bar here, your open and closed applications, as well as your media library of any media from previous applications that you've uploaded in your document library. So any of your previous PDFs or documents that you've submitted. You'll hit new application in the corner here, and you'll be taken to a list of our currently open grant programs. You will select art exhibition curatorial grant for individuals or for nonprofit organizations if you are a nonprofit. You'll hit save and continue. And then you'll be taken to an overview page where you'll submit things like your name, the title of your exhibition, the begin and end dates. This is where you'll submit things like any written materials like your curator statement. You'll hit save and continue, and you will be asked to upload your budget here via PDF or via Excel spreadsheet, I'm sorry. You'll hit save and continue, and then you will be brought to your media library. Media library is slightly tricky. It takes a couple steps to upload any JPEG images that you have associated with your exhibition proposal. You will attach media from the library, which you can imagine as your document library for the portal, not for the application itself, but for the portal itself. So once you have uploaded all of the necessary JPEG files by uploading them in this application attachment section, you'll identify them with a recognizable naming system. So, artwork title underscore artwork artist last name. You'll submit them all into your media library. And you'll see this orange button pop up that says click here when you're done uploading your files to see your new media files. You will hit that button and it will pop up your media library. You can see all of the images that you've just uploaded. And now is time to then attach those images to your application itself. You'll do that by selecting the title, just clicking the title of each artwork that you've just uploaded. This will automatically populate them into your application, at which time you will have fully brought in all of the images into your application. You're able to review them in the final review section. But after you've uploaded images, you'll then be asked to upload any required documents. This is where you'll upload things like your exhibition timeline, any artist statements, any W-9s, etc. We ask that all of these be PDFs because it allows us to view them in the back end of the website as opposed to having to download them as Word docs. It's just a little administrative side that we ask for your help on. And there you'll have a chance to review the whole application at the end and hit submit. I'm happy to go through a final review of your application with you if that's something that you would like. But I'm also available to schedule calls as you're developing your application. If you have any further questions, I've listed my email here as well as my phone number. And our working hours are 9 to 5:30 on Mondays to Friday. I'm available during those times. Happy to answer any questions you have at this point. Allison, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah. I had two kind of short questions. One is, as an organization applying, can we apply for the 35K if there's have a mentee curator as well?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, and the other question is, if we were applying for the social justice theme, which is the winter time frame, I'm just wondering about the likelihood of actually getting the funds in time for that. Just based on my experience with other grants, because since we're like, needing to pay people before, I don't know.
Very good point.
Any thoughts on that?
It's a very good point. I think in comparison to some of the other grant lines where there would be a list of 80 grantees or 150 or 500 grantees. In this case, there would be 3 grantees. And especially for that first section, we would expedite the payment of the award. I'm realizing that this is something we didn't explicitly discuss, and Ron, I might need your help on this. I know that it isn't dispersed in full at the beginning of the award. So I think you get half at the beginning and then the other half in the middle of the grant period. Ron, is that how it works?
Typically, I would have to look at the grant, the previous grant, but you usually get a large sum. Then you would be having some deliverables where you would deliver the final exhibition layout, all the final artists and all of that material, and then you will receive your second payment. We always hold back about a couple $1,000s for the last payment. So there's 3 payments. And that is just so that will be provided to you at the end once the exhibition is taken down. I mean, we cannot guarantee how fast we can move because it's not all just us moving these funds. We have to go through multiple agencies and processes to do it. And we process an exorbitant amount of grants. So we try to work as hard as we can. And this would be a priority since the first exhibition will be needing funding as soon as possible. But we obviously can't guarantee, but it's what we have to work with and push it.
Yeah, and just a little bit about the timeline for review of this exhibition. I believe, let me just double check before I say words, that this would go up for review at our September commission meeting, which means that you would get notified in early October of the award. Lauren. Oh, you're muted, Lauren. You're muted, so I can't hear you. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Just a quick question about the uploading of the images of the works.
Sure.
And so when you were describing the process of uploading it to the grant application, if upon the initial application, the expectation is not necessarily to have all of the works identified, correct?
Correct.
And so are we uploading representative works, or how would you like that process to be?
Yeah, so as many images as you can provide at the time of application that demonstrate that you've identified artists and potential artworks to include in the exhibition is what we're imagining. There's no like magic number that shows that you have fully thought this through, but that you've, can demonstrate the concept of the show itself.
Okay, thanks.
Philip.
All right, so I have a amazing question, and you can say no, but say like I understand that you guys are giving out one grant per topic of the expedition, but I had a question. Like, say if like another person is also doing like the queer one, and I want to collaborate with them, but I don't like. Say if I get like denied, is that up for grabs or no? Not really.
So the question is, if they get the award and they are looking for support on their award.
Yes.
I do think that's actually been done in the past. Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, that we will, ask if that applicant needs support. And reach out if they say yes. Is that, am I making that up, Ron?
We kind of started, and we're trying to do this with like an upcoming Murals DC program, which is the murals. We're trying to kind of work with applicants who might benefit from an application that is either a mentor or mentee to kind of learn the process and step into the position for support. So we can definitely talk about it and see, but I know we were going to kind of launch it with our Murals DC program and kind of see how it goes, but there's no sense that we can't do it for AEG. If the grantee doesn't already have a co-curator that is identified.
Okay. Yeah, so that was my question. Like, to his point, if the grantee doesn't have a co-curator, because again, like I said, like I only done this once, a little bit inexperienced, but I want to learn more, and I'm down to collaborate, especially if it's on a topic that I'm already thinking about.
And yeah, I really appreciate the question too, because it's something that we're committed to as well. I want to just flag another opportunity for you in the DC area that might be a good fit for you. So the DC Art Center has a curatorial fellowship that is explicitly supporting curators who are looking to, build up their chops as curators, and they are paired with a curatorial mentor who will support them as they're executing an exhibition for DC Art Center. Just another thing to put on your radar.
Thank you. I would definitely look out for that. And that was the DC Art Center, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions I can answer at this point?
Yes, Michelle. Are you pretty much finished with your presentation?
Yes,
I have
all done.
All right. Let me just start by saying thank you for this workshop. It's been very informative about and clarified a lot of issues that we thought we had, which we don't.
Good.
You said something about in the grant applications, the communication strategies. Who in the CAH is in charge of those communication strategies? And once the grant is awarded, can we set up meetings to build a timeline? Because, I don't know their schedule and everything else, but, months in advance, we should figure out what the communication strategies are.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I do appreciate getting ahead of that because oftentimes we communicate out about things in the last minute fashion and we don't need to. We have a communications team on staff at CAH, and I would ask for the awardee to, with me, set up a time to meet with the comms director and comms team to identify a comms strategy related to this exhibition.
Okay, that's great. Now, in one part of the application process, it says that the renderings is an optional.
Yes.
But then if you look at the criteria on what the award is based on, the rendering has a important weight.
Yes, I did notice that in preparing for this workshop, actually, that when we revised the RFA, generally the evaluation criteria, the rendering is still included in that criteria. So I'm going to review that as a part of this application process, but considering that it is optional, I don't think it's fair that the criteria is judged based on an optional category. So thank you for flagging that.
Okay, one thing, we are going to look at partnering with several nonprofits. And one of the ones that we're looking at has an existing collection, and we're thinking about divvying up the space with them getting, like 50% of the 180 linear feet plus, some freestanding or pedestal type work. The question that I have for that is, some of the artists in their collections may be deceased. And I think you kind of alluded to it, but I just want for clarification. We could do a rendering of those artworks, but then for the artist statement, it would be the mission of that organization in lieu of individual artist statements, correct?
Yeah, so I would certainly include that nonprofit organization's mission statement as a part of your application, and include as many of the artist statements or images of the artworks in your application from that organization as you can at this stage. But yeah, artwork by deceased artists presents a barrier to including artist statements if those don't currently exist. And I wouldn't want you to write artist statements on behalf of deceased artists.
The other thing is with the renderings, does the CAH have a template of each of the wall panels where we could, put in the imagery to scale?
Yeah, this was my question for Ron too a little bit earlier, because I was a little bit curious how in previous grant years, this is for full disclosure, this is my first year running this grant line, so I don't have previous years in my brain to refer back to. But Ron, when the previous curator was evaluating these renderings, were they created using the provided image stills in the RFA of the gallery space, or did they how did they submit those?
Yeah, it would depend on the artist or depend on the curator and how they submitted it. Some created a more elaborate presentation, but they basically used what we have at the end of the RFA, which are all of the single shot images of all of the walls, and then just superimpose the JPEGs on top of those. It doesn't look graceful, but it gives the panel an idea of where you're thinking of placement. But it is kind of hard to sort of adjust scale. So that is why I think we also made it kind of an optional this year, because I think it's quite a challenge to do. But it's always good to kind of see how the layout is forming. So that's why we recommend it. So we would just recommend, if you can, using, and I think Michelle, you can probably send out all the JPEGs, because I think in a previous people asked for it, and then you would have sort of the files that are on the RFA to superimpose images of where you're thinking the layout will be like, and then just submit that as the rendering.
Well, our team, Ron, came down and we noticed that some of the walls are not represented in some of the diagrams or the photographs. So,
which walls are you speaking of?
I'm sorry?
Oh, which walls were you?
I think it was N, which is, you know, that kind of near the front corner there. N, I don't think is there, and O didn't have its dimensions. I mean, we took dimensions of everything, but
Are those the artworks above the benches? Are those the walls above the benches?
It's not the benches. It's all the way in the rear. Normally where you have the podium for openings, that wall behind O it doesn't have. And then
It's kind of like
also
that.
on N, which is kind of that corner, short corner that you just got some labels there. And also P has that vent on it. So, you know, we had to make some measurements of incorporating the vent into the exhibit space on P.
Okay.
So yeah, we noticed, you know, quite a few. So what I did is I just did some pencil drawings, you know, rectangles, you know, creating our own very, very basic, but not to scale. So, you know, we can get this information to our partners so they can try to figure out, okay, what are they going to inlay into the imagery on these? Because the dimensions were so small on that, you know, ABCD, etc. Layout as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to send those image files to you of the renderings as well.
That would be great. That would be great. And let's see, if one gets the grant, is there going to be reserved parking for load-ins?
So we have access to a loading dock in the back of our building, which we use for install and deinstall. It's
well, I'm sorry, in the application it says it has to come through the front door.
that might be a holdover from previous years, but
yeah, it's quite difficult because our back loading dock does not have it's like basically you have to go down a flight of stairs. So it is kind of a safety thing that sometimes to double park and bring it to the front is the easiest way, and then you can use our loading dock as parking. Because we can't, when you bring it from the loading dock, you have to go down a flight of stairs and then out through the front. So unfortunately, yeah, it's just like actually just a lot easier to bring it in through the front if you can.
Okay, well, you know, that was the thing, you know, double parking, you're subject to getting parking tickets. So I didn't know if there was reserved space in the front to, you know, help.
No, we do not have that, unfortunately.
Okay. Also, Ron, this is probably for you too. Hanging, is it D-rings or wires? And then what attachment do you have on the wall to hold up the artwork?
We have no attachments directly on the wall. It's up to your installer to provide the best installation, whether it's a D-ring or wire to do, but we don't have any installation equipment to provide to hold anything to the wall.
Okay, but what do you recommend to attach to the wall for the hanging purposes?
It depends on the material of the work.
Okay.
So if it is a painting, you know, D-rings are always better. You know, if it's a work of art that is like, I mean, there are so many options of installing and hanging.
Well, no, I think my question is, yes, I know the D-rings and the wire, you know, that comes with the art. What is on the wall? What
it's just
is
just a wall.
Just a wall. It's a dry wall.
It's a dry wall.
It's just drywall. Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, depending on how heavy the piece is, your installer might need, you know, to put in like an anchor. Yeah, things like that. So you're welcome. You know, I think I'm sorry, I don't know if this was mentioned before, but you know, previously you had to paint and patch the walls. Now we don't ask for that, which is good. It saves money on the grantee. So we will patch and repair and paint the walls before and after. So just talk with us if you're selected and just let us know the installation types, and we're happy to look at them, and we work with some professional art handlers as well that can provide feedback that might be the best way to hang something once you're selected.
Okay, and then, okay, because that's in, you know, you have to be responsible for patching. It's still in the application. All right, and the other thing,
it's no longer in.
It's not.
in our current RFA.
Okay, I thought it was. Maybe I'm, all right, maybe it was the old one I was looking at. Okay, and then coloring the walls, if we want to, do something patriotic, red, white, and blue, just as an example, we have to obtain permission to do that, correct?
Correct.
And then y'all would be responsible for painting over it once it's done, correct?
Correct.
All right, just needed to know that. And let's see, do y'all have, I know the co-curator has to do a letter of consent. Do y'all have a template, or is it just a basic, I consent to being the co-curator of this exhibition?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, all right. And are there any other forms that are needed that y'all have templates for?
So if you go to our art exhibition grant landing page for that RFA,
yeah,
you'll see the budget template is there.
Yeah,
the
got it.
exhibition timeline template is there. And then all of the mandatory documents are on that resources for grant applicants page, where you'll find the artwork copy, the statement of certification, W-9. But those are the only, the exhibition timeline and the budget template are the only document forms for this exhibition.
Okay, all right, and let's see. I know I had a few more. Did you remove the 2,000K for the insurance that was put into the budget?
Please
All right.
put that.
Okay, and let's see, we talked about the image of the artwork. That's good. Okay, the month in advance of the exhibition installation, the final image list. Now that can be a change from what we have put in the application as well, if we see that there's, some issues that we have and have to revise that.
Exactly.
Okay. And let's see. The selected, okay, this is in the new one. Selected artwork demonstrates artistic excellence and high aesthetic quality. And I know we had talked about that because we'll have some people that are not on that level.
Yeah, I think that I remember that conversation, Cassie. I want you to submit the exhibition and the artworks that best represent the communities that you're working with. So please don't hear high aesthetic quality and imagine that the communities that you're working with are ineligible.
Okay. And Ron, you might know this because we walked through and we identified spaces that might be, used for pedestals or freestanding art, but we were not sure if, there are any spaces that cannot be used for freestanding or pedestals.
I think the only thing, and I'm happy to look at where you're thinking of placing things once you go through, just as long as think of it as a public space and making sure that there's some ADA compliances. So if someone that is bound, like wheel bound or has something that might need to walk around. So you might not want to put something by a fire exit. We kind of have had sculptures installed in the middle of the space, but there was ample enough space to walk around. Sculpture. What spaces are you thinking about?
Well, there's some, places in front of those glassed panels. And then there are also some spaces in between like I and J where, they are seated areas, but, possibly putting something on each side of those.
Yeah, we've had sculptures there before, especially like in front of the glass partitions that might go up against the partition. Yeah, that would be sufficient. You just want to think about, you know, just making sure everyone has accessibility and it's a public space. We don't want people knocking into it. So
and we noticed L is not, you know, on one of the diagrams because it's got the banister. However, the current exhibition has some work hanging on L above the banisters. So, you know, that was another one of our concerns. Oh, and I told you it was wall P had the vent. No, it's wall Q has a vent on the far right side.
Oh, yes. Yeah, all the way, like kind of up. It's like an air vent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll want that sort of, and then sort of wrapped around, there's like a fire exit. So you just want to make sure that's clear so people can move out of that as well.
Door. Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. I think that may be all that I had. And if there's anything else, I will, you know, get back with you, Michelle. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Sure,
Cassie.
thank you.
And thanks for all your questions.
All right.
All right, I'm going to hit stop recording. And let's see.